Hello, welcome to tonight's stream. Today is a Wednesday. We're technically right now on a streak of guest sessions. So on Monday, we had Vinamra. Tuesday, so 419, we had Vinamra. 420, we had Goji. Today is 421. Also a special day because it's 21/21, 2021. We're going to be speaking to Sneha. So, Sneha, what's up? Welcome to stream.
Hey, hey everyone. This is my first stream, so everyone, please be nice to me. Uh, yeah,
Yeah. So today, very interesting. We've coined a new phrase, Kulcha culture, which is what we're going to be talking about. Basically, today's video is probably going to be an exploration into what is Indian design and art culture, what is Indian streetwear, and not just Indian. Let's connect it to global trends in streetwear, music, culture, whatever. But free flowing conversation to explore those things.
yeah. So, we were just talking before this about a thing that happened very recently, which was if you guys have been following street art in India, there's this organization called Start India. It's like ST plus ART, which is street art or Start India,
Mm.
and they work with like street artists around the world. And they did one some of the first graffiti and street art projects in India, public art projects or whatever. And recently, some of the oldest work that they got done by some international street artists and graffiti artists was taken down, like painted over, and painted over by uh, Budweiser for a campaign that they were doing with
Mm.
Lionel Messi or something like that. And yeah, the internet basically, like everyone kind of lost it.
Yeah.
Indian in Yeah, and it was a big deal because it was wiped out. And like graffiti artists, I think, and street artists, like they thrive in this idea of ephemera and like
Mm.
temporary art. But more than that, this entire thing that happened was the fact that Budweiser, for like a very short-lived campaign, and I mean, I don't want to comment on the art. It's like okay,
uh,
it's very random as compared to what was there before. But more than that, it was like what the art that was there symbolized, and like it was
yeah.
like India's foray into having its own kind of street art voice and
Mm.
whatever. And then yeah, they just painted over this, and it got really nasty. And but the good thing, it ends well because Budweiser India basically uh, said that they would take those down, and they said that on their own budget they would get these artists to come back to India and paint
Yeah.
something back there.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't redo the old one, but
Mm.
it's still decent
So I'll tell you
way
this.
to apologize.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
came across these guys, street art, a few years ago, and I was shocked first. I was like, yo, I didn't even know this culture has made its way to India. And they've been doing it consistently for a couple of years now. But before we
yeah.
jump into that, I want to ask you, why street art? What's the reason we should have street art? Like, what's your maybe experience been like? What do you feel about this?
I mean, my understanding again with street art is that you street art is like a counterculture movement in most geographies and most areas in the US, or like in New York subways, or in many parts of Europe, in Germany, and things like that. It's people um, being like rebelling against the system or showing expressing themselves in ways that through an artistic medium. And it's a lot of times the fact it's the medium itself that is the format of the art. It's not about, so like I mean, a very common, the most common and the foray into street art that many graffiti artists get into is like tags. It's like tagging their own name. And they each have like they'll have like a unique, sometimes really elaborate tag. Usually they start out pretty simple
Mm.
and then they get more and more crazy. But that's not the point, right? Like as somebody who is on the outside just seeing that, it's weird to just be like, why are you just writing your name on things and running away, especially when it's like illegal.
Mm.
So most places it's illegal. But it's about the rush of doing it. It's about the fact that it's temporary. It's about the fact that you own a piece of something in the world. And most times it's
Yeah.
like people who don't have access to uh, conventional art systems like
Mm.
modern art or like art museums, art galleries. They get to kind of share that experience of like being part of the art world.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's like with respect to graffiti and like how street art started. There's this really amazing uh, street artist called Daku in India,
Mm.
and he's super intelligent and like again very um, tongue in cheek. There's a lot of like commentary about things that are happening in the world, about just basically around us, just to make a comment on it. And I think the main idea behind like street art, a big part of it, is like taking art outside of spaces that
Mm.
are only accessible to certain kind of people and making it like everybody's. So it's like participatory, like everyone can have an opinion about it. Even the fact that you don't like it is an opinion. The fact that it becomes a landmark in many cases to many people is again something that you can own a piece of that.
Mm.
Then yeah, which is what happened in Delhi, right? Like those pieces of street art were like became landmarks in horse cars and in like these different locations that they were in. One was I think in what is that place called? The I forgot what it is. Shapurjat. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Shapurjat was like a small, like not even. It's just like a small area that people kind of revived
Mm.
using street art and a lot of these smaller shops and stuff. But yeah, it became like its own landmark, and people would be like, come to this particular where that bear is or whatever,
Mm.
and then people would know where that it revives the space around it in many cases. So yeah, there's a lot of like contrasting opinions.
Yeah.
Some people think that street art is kind of gentrifying, especially when you get like foreign artists to come into your country and paint something that does not have a lot of contextual
Mm.
significance. But in my experience, yeah, working with like start, they usually work very hard to curate what the piece of art should say itself,
Yeah.
because they don't want the local people to be like, what the fuck is this? Like, this does not speak to who I am
Yeah.
or whatever.
Let's talk about
Yeah.
Daku.
Yeah, Daku is an Indian.
Let's talk about
Yeah,
Daku for some
amazing.
time. For people who don't know who
Yeah.
Daku is, you can think of Daku as an Indian Banksy. Okay. Um, Pseudonymous, right? People don't know who Daku is. Although internally, there's a few people who know who Daku is, but in general,
Yeah.
public
Do
persona.
you know who Daku is?
I know, bro,
Do you
but
know who
let's not
Daku is,
let's
Abna?
not say it. Okay. I know you've told
Okay,
me.
okay. I'm not saying it, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So killer, okay, killer. Because the first time I saw Daku is I was in Delhi and I actually saw this. I literally saw this. Like maybe it was a different version, but this was near the Nehru Place flyover, and I saw this, and it instantly caught my eye, right? And when I saw that, I was like, wow. When I think of street art, I think of like graffiti, and I don't think of India. I think of graffiti. I'm like, okay, in New York, Berlin. But when I saw this, it just something about it just pulled me in. I was like, yo, that is something I recognize as somebody who spends most of their time on the internet. Um, it was crazy to me, dude.
Yeah.
It was crazy when I saw this. Yeah.
Yeah, even the so basically there was one campaign that they did where they used billboards to talk about how it's not advertising. Yeah, they're the
Yeah.
ones in Hyderabad. So it's always used as an advertising space and to make a comment on the medium itself is so cool.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and there's just a lot of it's just like makes you think and like laugh sometimes. You're just like if you see, especially these stop signs are amazing.
Yeah.
They're like so big. So one of the reasons why he's pseudonymous is because there are a lot of cases against him for, especially for the work in Delhi, this stop sign stuff. Um, I think even the Gandhi stuff and like
Mm,
yeah, there are a few.
yeah, for sure. There's a few of these in Bangalore as well, by the way, for anybody who wants to check out. I'll say two,
Yeah,
and maybe so one is of course at the 100 feet road at the what's that Sony signal, is that it in Indranagar? It's not Sony anymore. What's that signal called?
the 12th main signal.
The 12th main signal. Yeah, so there's one there. It's on one of the buildings. You have to really see it. um, there is one on Trinity Circle as well. Trinity Circle has this one, Enjoy Daku, in the style of Coke. This is there on Trinity Circle. You really have to look for it though. So I think that's what also makes it fun. It's this idea of urban
Yeah,
exploration, which is you have to really have an eye for it. Number one, and even if you see this, it might not connect. But if you've seen this online, you know what it's about. And then when you see it, that's a whole experience. You're like, wow, I found it. It's a hidden Easter egg in the real world.
yeah, yeah. Speaking of, have you heard of the what are they called? The little alien character. What are they called?
Which
You know
one?
what I'm talking about?
No.
The ones that are around the world. They're like mosaic arts. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, and you can mention it in the
Invader.
comments.
You're talking about Invader.
Yeah, Space Invader.
Yeah.
Yeah, Space Invader. Yeah. So that is amazing. So I have experienced the thrill of looking for those in different cities. So basically, there for context, there are these tiny tile mosaic Space Invaders. They're really small, and they are placed in cities, in usually in landmarks in various cities, in like corners, street corners. Like for example, it would be placed, if there was one in Bangalore, it would be likely placed in let's say near a commonly like a frequented area,
Church
maybe like
Street,
on Church
maybe.
Street or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, on Church Street. So similarly, so it's there in many cities, and there is a map on the website where you can find where around the globe uh, they all of the Space Invaders,
Nice.
and they're super cute. They're really small, and again, they're done like no one knows who does it. They do it like in the middle of the night when no one is seeing it. There's no vandalism because they're just tiles that are like glued onto like a surface, a wall,
Hmm.
or whatever. And the fact that it's such a movement and like to have it in your city is such a special thing. People don't remove it. They just keep it there. See, oh, this is where? This is Varanasi.
Varanasi.
Oh, there it is. There.
It's almost not visible, right?
Crazy. Yeah.
It's so funny because
Yeah. Yeah.
all the other ones, it's straight up obvious, but India does have so much visual sensory overload
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're just it's like as soon as you find them, you feel like you've achieved something, even if you know exactly where to find it. And the fact that it's there, and it's such a, especially in like in many of these European cities where there are like a lot of historical sites and like these old monuments, and you have this really colorful Space Invader stuck on one wall.
Yeah.
I think in some European city where Picasso became famous, like that's where one of the Space Invaders also is. So that street is like super narrow and really like as you can imagine, like very old and
Mm,
has like jam packed with like European architecture, and then you have this random colorful Space Invader.
mm.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
It is quite crazy. If
Yeah.
I remember correctly, there was even a point where they had an app or something where you could scan and collect them. I don't know if it's still active,
Oh,
but yeah. But yo,
yeah.
is this NFTs before NFTs were cool?
I'm telling you, they really are. And I mean, I think that this idea of like ephemeral art, or like to not hold art so, like there's two schools of thought, right? Like one is like collection and like holding something and waiting for it to become more valuable, or like owning it in a sense that nobody else has it or whatever. Or there's another kind of art that some people get to experience, but then after that, no one gets to have it ever. It's
Mm,
over. Like the time of it is part of the experience, and I don't know. I always wonder, like with these really, especially with street artists, right? They work. It's the thrill. It's the fact that if you get caught in many cities, you go to prison for it,
yeah, yeah.
and you do it like in the dead of the night. It's important for you to do it well. You to do it quick, and then at the end of that, like the next day, the municipality or whatever of your city will come and wipe it off. I keep thinking whether it's worth it, and
Mm,
maybe it is. Like I don't know, but it's so interesting to think that that is part of the experience of it.
yeah.
Yeah,
It
it's pretty
is
amazing.
it is definitely one aspect of, art should not be limited to galleries, because who goes to galleries anymore? Who goes to museums? But
Yeah,
with public art, it's almost like without their permission, without the permission of the state,
yeah,
without the permission of the viewers, you are now intercepting this art, whether they like it or not, they will have to see it. Like that, I feel is super interesting.
yeah. And there's this even this Tyler, of course, is again a lot of commentary about like what's happening. It's always very either politically colored or it has some kind of social
So
commentary.
one of his,
But that,
yeah, go on.
do you remember when Banksy got the art to be destroyed
Mm.
at the auction, right? Which is like there are very few things that can bring that many people who don't have access to the kind of money at that, or to the people in that auction, bring everyone together, no matter where you are in the world, to watch rich people go like, what the fuck. It's just like, whoa, it's so enjoyable to watch
Yeah.
that happen. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, I mean, when that happened, I was just like, this is weirdly a win for all of us in
Mm.
some way. Yeah.
In fact, I went to this Banksy museum in I don't know, maybe it was Amsterdam 1 or 2 years back, and it was basically this joint exhibition of Banksy and Dali, and
Whoa.
obviously, I mean, I realized this like a couple minutes after spending time inside. It was obviously not sanctioned, which is they were showing Banksy's work
Oh,
without, of course, paying Banksy anything, and they can't because Banksy doesn't work with Banksy is anti-establishment, so they're not gonna
yeah.
him or the team of people, they won't do it. So literally, the art pieces were, there was a piece which said, if you find this piece in a gallery, know that they're making fun of you, right? There was
Yeah.
literally, the pieces there are talking about how this is going to be painted on a wall. Somebody is going to take this out of this public view, going to take it into a private collection and going to sell it. So all the art there, it was such a jarring experience because you're there.
Yeah.
They've
There's
created
this
this
excellent
experience.
documentary called Exit Through the Gift Shop. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's about, I mean, it's apparently made by Banksy, and it's a journey. That documentary is like, I don't know, there are very few things like that. You don't know what you're watching till the end of it. You're like, this is fucking amazing. And so there's a guy in a hood the whole time who's narrating this story, and you can't see, of course, that's supposed to be Banksy. But the story is not about Banksy, it's about another artist.
Hmm.
And it just tells you the story of street art, and it tells you the story of why they do what they do in such an
Yeah.
interesting way. It's a documentary, but it's also like a film where I
Hmm.
don't know which part of it is fiction. There are some parts of it where I think even who is the artist, the very famous, the red and black art. I don't know. I
Hmm.
forgot. He's really famous again. Um, Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of guest appearances by
Hmm.
really go down. Can you go scroll back to that page? The
What?
exit through the gift shop page.
Hmm.
This- Ah, yeah, Shepherd Ferry. Yeah, Shepherd Ferry is also like
Yeah. Shepherd Ferry,
really
for those of you
famous.
who
Yeah,
are wondering, is there's one which you've definitely seen, which is the obey sign. That was one of the most popular pieces. This was really, really long back as well. This was like in the 90s or the 80s, where he popularized this
yeah,
phrase, which is obey. And this was using Andre the Giant as the artwork. But this is really popular. And then Shepherd Ferry, then in like many years after that, was also the dude who made this. Um, so yeah, it was. I think this was also like a moment because there was this kind of legitimacy thing for they were like, yo, street art is art, right? In the same way today, ironically, when we look at NFTs, people are like, yo, digital art is art. We've had to have that conversation multiple times. Yeah.
yeah. And it was cool was again right. Like Obama was like apparently in the public eye like this and anti-establishment type of character, and for Obama's campaign to take a street artists and use their art was so symbolic of what they were
Hmm.
trying to drive home. I mean, of course, it's all part of the marketing of it, but it was done so intelligently.
Yeah.
But Abhinav, if you saw the Obey poster, you know what? That's a great segue into
What?
the red square,
Hmm. Tell me more, bro. Tell me
the
more.
rectangle. Tell me more. Yeah, which is that it's so familiar. It's just like Supreme.
Hmm.
And yeah, and the story of Supreme is also so fun and so silly,
Yeah.
which is again that Supreme took an artist's work, an artist who has been using this style for so long and then made it their own.
Hmm.
And she keeps mocking Supreme for doing that, but it's so funny. I feel like the whole of this street art and like streetwear and like all of these countercultures and these subcultures together, they're all like memes on each other,
Hmm.
and it's so excellent. Like to kind of if you know they're all like stories and stories, and then the more you know about them, the more you appreciate the fact that they're so silly and no one's taking anyone seriously, and it's amazing. Like
Yeah.
the I think people take the fact that Supreme selling a brick for like so much money like way too seriously. I think
No,
the fact that they're selling the brick is what is excellent.
man.
It's so fucking funny.
I'm
Yeah.
we will talk. See, I feel like maybe today's session we can't really talk about streetwear because I have so much more I want to still discuss for street art. But I'm
Yeah,
waiting
sure.
for the day Supreme decides to get into NFTs because it feels like they're ready for it. Like to show you all an example,
Yeah.
okay? Supreme, the box logo, that's the most famous thing. But when you look at Supreme drops, it's almost
Sneakers and streetwear are like the OG NFT. They're like
yeah,
that's
it's almost an inside joke to see who the fuck is gonna buy this,
yeah,
right? It's an
yeah.
inside
A
joke to see
crowbar.
who the fuck is gonna buy toothpaste. And of course, you have the brick, which is classic, right? You have the crowbar, you got hammers, and basically every drop. So for people who are not familiar, um, they do a, let's say, a summer drop or a winter drop or a fall, whatever. Every drop, of course, has this, which they have their clothes, the jackets wear, but they don't announce, they don't drop all of them at once. So they announce at the start of the season, this is what we're going to have. And then every week's any items from that can drop. So it's almost like for example, this season we're gonna have the fucking cash gun, but you don't know the next 6 weeks when it's gonna drop, which then creates that culture of standing outside the store for this or the massive resales. So I feel like Supreme, the day they get into NFTs, game over, bro, for everyone else.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is that actually as Supreme is selling these at like not very expensive prices, the resale of it is the part where is it's really funny, right? Like recently also I saw some Indian resale like company that was selling Supreme stickers
Hmm.
for like 5,000 a piece. And it's so funny. It's like 5,000 rupees for a
Yeah.
sticker. And like people are just like eat that shit up. And I love it. It's amazing to watch. It's
Yeah. Man, so it's definitely super interesting, right? By the way, I think that looked like a folks. You all know what this is. This is electricity going away. So Sneha will join us back in a bit, but till then, let's talk a little bit more. Let's talk a little bit more about street art. By the way, thank you for the reminder. But also, Mulli, you are the first comment. I forgot to address this. What's up, everyone? When we see all
Abhinav,
of,
I'm back,
oh, awesome.
but I'm the current is gone.
Yeah. Okay. Um,
Keep
I'll
talking.
just
Yeah.
talk for a bit. Okay. I was just gonna
Yeah.
screen share and talk about some more Indian stuff. Um, what I also feel is a lot of people are alienated by um, this kind of American street art because it's like, yo, like I don't really care about what Obama's up to. Like, cool political statement, bro, but like, I'm here in India. What we're starting to see is there's a lot more Indian stuff happening, right? So, for example, Tyler Street Art. The story I started following Tyler a few years ago. Tyler is, I mean, of course, right now it's totally pseudonymous, but from what I know, Tyler is a student at IIT Bombay, dude. He, if you check out some of his earliest works, he is, dude, this is too funny. His earliest work has been him at fests or him in these random walls on the campus doing stuff, right? And slowly that gave him like his technical skill. You could see that improvement. And today, I would you say Tyler's one of the biggest ones, most popular?
Yeah.
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 And another thing I want to show,
Infrequent.
yeah,
So Tyler is much more regular. Yeah.
true. And I think with Tyler, it's also that a lot of these pieces end up making news. So imagine this. Imagine if you actually did this, for example, right? It's like grow a spine, bro. That's what they're saying. And it's a political statement. So what usually ends up happening is these pieces make it to page one. They make it to top publications because this becomes really good cover art for newspapers. So it's very interesting how that relationship works. Yeah. I will talk about one more thing though. Since we're in this mood of talking about Indian culture and how we do this, dude, I did some street art back in the day. And I'll show you my account. This is probably private right now. Actually, maybe not. Um, remember you were saying about how you go out in the night and you do all this. Like it's scary as shit, dude. It's really really scary because
Okay.
when you look at street art in um, the US or in Europe, there's lesser population, so you can actually stick something up or do something with nobody noticing you. That should never happens in India. No matter how late it is, there's always people around and there's crowded. So I can tell you a small story around this, which is the. By the way, OGs, you already know this, but there's actually an entire video dedicated to this. It is on. It should technically be on ABNUX, not ABNUX 2. But there's this thing which is. I'll just quickly show it here. This was one of the street art projects I did, which is street art prank gone viral. um, I stuck up these posters outside Third Wave. Of course, Sneha, you know this. I'm just like uh,
Yeah.
playing for the audience. But I put up this
Yeah, of
poster,
course.
VC for startups. This is in the PG for boys kind of style. It was featured on Factor Daily, which is one of the biggest startup publications. People are like, who the fuck is this? People are like, oh, Banksy of Koramangala, bro. And of course, did this pseudonymously. It was only like a year or 2 years after the thing where I made this video. This has the entire process. You can check it out. But back then, we did a lot of these kind of pieces. So this was in on Church Street. So this was me and, in fact, Goji. He was here yesterday. We were doing these kind of pieces, and it was so interesting to do this because we weren't painting. One thing we realized while doing this was painting takes a lot of time. If you look at what Tyler is doing, or to some extent what Daco is doing, this is a stencil. Like this, amazing by the way. Uh, this one is on the way to Horse, and dude, it's a huge, huge dump. Like the place stinks as you go near it, and the natural instinct is to figure out what stinks. You look around, you're like, what? Where's the smell coming from? And you see this kuda, which basically means trash. So this is really um, but yeah, what I was saying was these are stencils. Now, stencils is an interesting format because it's like you get to do it really fast. It's a few layers, you paint this, and it's done. But what I found was a much faster format was wheat pasting. So these are actually just A4 sheets. I printed, basically take one artwork. There's this thing called Rasterbator. It's this website. It takes any artwork and breaks it up into these multiple pages. And then you cut them out and you can just stick this with wheat paste. Like literally atta with water, mix that up, take a paintbrush and just paint this on. So we did a bunch of these, dude. Yeah,
And the best part about that is it doesn't damage anything. You can just pull it out. Like,
it does, bro. It's wheat pasting is it leaves horrible stains. It makes the whole thing straight,
really?
and wheat paste starts smelling as well. So this is in
Oh,
Domlur. But another interesting thing about this is they don't last. Like a lot of these lasted for 2 days. A lot of these literally gone this thing because I feel the reaction people have when they see this is, dude, that's a rule break. That's not allowed. And that's curiosity. But then that curiosity leads to destruction. They're just like, dude, I cannot allow this to be here. Like, this is not supposed to be here. Yeah.
yeah.
So, Sneha, what I want to know is I actually want to now talk about your book, the book that you've designed. So, for folks who are not familiar, Sneha's actually made an entire book. This was one of the projects she did dedicated to street art. Um, Let me just open that up. Tell me more about this. How did it happen? Like, what was the process like for you?
Yeah, so I hope I'm at least somewhat audible. Yeah. So the project was with Start India. So it was my graduation project. So I went to, for those of you who don't know, I went to design school. And at the end of your in your final year, you do like graduation project. It's like a thesis project. So it's usually 4 to 6 months. And I was looking for a good project, and at that time, nothing was interesting to me until someone put me in touch with uh, Hanif Qureshi, who
Mm,
is one of the co-founders of Start India Foundation, and he's a street artist himself and a designer. And he basically, they were interested, they had been working in the street art space for the last 4 years, 5 years, and
mm,
they were looking to design a book that talked about street art in India, street art culture in India, and of course the growing art culture in India. And it's very different, like you mentioned, it's very different from the street art story in other countries in the US and Europe. US and Europe somewhat similar in some sense. There's like graffiti movement. Graffiti goes into like, then there are like more uh, you know famous quote unquote street artists that kind of become big and things like that. But in India, they're very, it's like we have a culture of street art in many ways. There are more traditional forms of like Gond art or
mm,
Warli, or even like doing kolam or rangoli. In many senses, it's street art, but no one thinks of it as street art and how it's defined in Western cultures. So so we have that, and then we have, of course, uh, graffiti and a lot of borrowed um, street art from like Western worlds and stuff like
mm,
that. So it's like, what is our story with these things, all of these things mixed together? So that was the project that I had to work on, which is like, and of course, what was Start's kind of place in all of this? What were they trying to achieve by being public art. They're a non-profit, by the way. Like Start is a
Mm.
non-profit in India, and they work with a lot of government agencies, a lot of public areas to revive places, to bring in a local people to participate in many public art projects and things like that. So yeah, so that was the point of the book. So we had to basically research all of the story of everything that's happened so far, what is happening right now, what is going to happen. And it was very interesting. I learned so much about and I mean the name of the book says a lot about like my
Mm.
experience also, which is the book is called This Is Not Street Art, because in many ways, like we just spoke about, the idea of what we think about as street art is a very narrow image of what happens in the West and what happens like with graffiti and things like that.
Mm.
But in India, what constitutes street art is so much more than that in many ways. And because also we don't have such a thriving um, art gallery type of culture,
Yeah.
public art and street art in many ways can be just art. And it can be so much more than just art on the streets. And in India, like there are so many activities that happen on the streets.
Mm.
It's like the idea of a shop in India is very different from the idea of a shop anywhere else.
Mm.
Like, for example, like just even like your local person who you give clothes to iron, right? Like that is their shop, but it's technically on the street. Like it's not the boundaries of and what pavement or the is in India and in Indian cities. So that also means so much about like that also would that same kind of logic extends to the art as well.
Mm.
And like you mentioned also, right? Like in the nighttime, it's not like just because you go out in like the wee hours of the night, there aren't going to be people on the street who are going to ask you, "Kya kar rahe ho? Ye kya hai?"
Yeah.
Or like there's just so it's simple things. If you ever just on a random day, if you just go out in any Indian city, taking like you just take a book and like a pencil and you want to just draw or just write something and you just sit down on a bench or whatever and start drawing or writing something, you can take it from me in writing, at least one person will come up to you and ask you what you're doing.
Mm.
And like there's so much curiosity as to what's happening here. Can I be a part of this? Oh my god, there's art happening here. Like, is this person famous? Should I take photos of this person drawing something off my
Mm.
street? And it's so fascinating because that doesn't happen in many other places, and which is why it's so important to talk about the street art story in India in like an authentic way that is native to our own experiences. And yeah, that was the challenge. And yeah, it was, I mean, as a project, of course, it was
Mm.
very challenging to understand like book design and to figure out how to what is the narrative here. Are we talking about it like year one, two, three, four, five? Are we talking about it like based on geographies in India and how different things, or are we talking about like culturally significant things?
Mm.
So yeah, so I mean, all of like you shared on my website, I basically have the document, like my graduation project document, which is like 200 pages of research and like process and like all of my
Mm.
iterations and my explorations in like an A3 size document that I printed and I had to submit, which I still have, and it weighs like a few kilos. I don't know why it's so big, but yeah, it was crazy to do. Yeah.
So tell me this, okay? There is inherently some paradox here, which is street art is supposed to be transient. Street art is the Snapchat of art in some ways. However, when you see Street Art Foundation, when you see these folks do it, they're not really treating it as a transient piece. They're saying this is gonna uplift the neighborhood. Nobody else, now can paint on this wall. So when what Budweiser did, painting over, devil's advocate, it's not technically wrong because
It's
you
not.
have you have no claim over it, right? It's not that maybe they've asked the owners of the building, but most of the times it's just they do it and owners don't say anything because they're like, yeah, it improves how my property looks, right? It is totally unsanctioned. So for street art, it's a very tricky thing for Budweiser to do it because from a global level, it's not wrong. That's what street art is about. But however, the way they did it was
Definitely.
instead of integrating, they disrupted. Yeah.
So, I mean, when I think the important thing here is that because it's such a uh, close knit like subculture, because there's certain amount of respect within their shared disrespect for the man, for the authority. You as a street artist is like a mutual there's a like a respect that you have for the context of a certain piece, not the piece itself. Like this particular piece that was there, it's fine. Like it's really good. It's of course it's very well done. But what it represents in Delhi, it was one of like maybe the first 10 pieces of important quote unquote street arts
Yeah.
pieces in India. And it's synonymous with Delhi's street art culture or whatever. To replace that with what is essentially an ad campaign is kind of disrespectful in some ways.
It
It's
is.
not wrong. It's not wrong at all. And I mean, I'm not even getting into the argument of like it being like a capitalistic like ad thing. Like that's not the point. Like, of course, that's kind of shitty. But the point is just that at some level, like the enjoy Daku, for example, right? It's just so smart and like it's so fun to look at. And if I were someone who was in that neighborhood and I saw it and it was interesting, like the people around it really liked it. Don't be a shitty person and come and put your ad on top of that.
True.
Like that kind of sucks because you don't frequent that space. In many ways, that space does not belong to you.
Uh,
So um
and
yeah,
it's by
so I
this
mean
dude,
that's I
right?
think that
It's technically
yeah,
a valuable piece of art because it's, I mean, of course, it represents a moment in time where all of these artists were invited to India to come and do this. There was a
yeah,
whole context associated with it. And when something like that happens, it becomes a monument. It becomes a um
exactly. It's like destroying a monument is a very good example of that, which is that like even in the if you think about historically, right? Like if there was a beautiful monument that architecturally speaking was amazing or whatever, there are a lot of kings and queens and various people who came and destroyed it and built their own shit on top of it. But there is some amount of respect that you should have for the art that is there and kind of keep it in a way that it's about respect at the end of the day.
yeah.
So
I
if
mean,
you had done
there's no
something like that,
shortage
you
of
would want people
walls.
to respect.
There's no shortage of walls in Delhi,
Yeah, exactly.
right? So
Yeah, yeah,
very intentional
yeah.
for them to do it. Yeah.
And correct. But I think, I mean, in some, I don't think it's fully like, I think whoever signed it off was, it's a little tone deaf. But to see that they, to realize that there was something wrong with that and to rectify it is still a way, is a move in the right direction, I think. And I
Hmm.
think that's right. And I mean, even I think there is an like you rightly described. I think that street artists and graffiti artists, they're like an understanding that it is temporary and it is ephemeral, and to not uh, become so close to this piece that you made or whatever, and that either either the authorities will wipe it over and paint the wall back
Yeah.
white, or someone else will come and kind of do their tag on top of this. But it's like you respect someone else
Yeah.
who just you know their story, or you know what it signifies, and then you're just like, okay, you
Hmm.
don't fuck with this person, or you don't fuck with
Yeah.
this piece of art. So
I can
yeah,
tell
I think that's mainly.
I can tell you about my psyche, right? Of course, it's meant to be ephemeral, but it hurts when it goes away because you
Ah,
start thinking about why did it go away? Who took it off? Did they have a motive? Was it random? Right? All of these things start coming into your mind. And the reason I also feel is, as artists, we are not used to destroying our work. That's something we never do, right? It's almost like
Yeah.
you have these pages that are lying from 5 years ago. They're in some file, and you might never see them again, but you want to still keep it. You don't want to throw it away. I can tell you, when I started doing this, it hurt me. So there's a small exercise that I started doing to get myself used to destroying it, which is I would draw on receipts and then I would leave the receipt on the table, which is like this, for example, like let's say whatever, walk box chicken. I would just leave it on the table or wherever else. Or sometimes I would just do it, crush it up, and then throw it. And
Yeah.
this was almost the same experience for me, but now I was like, okay, fuck, I have to throw it away. Because even if I take this along with me, what am I gonna do with it? And I'm not gonna stick it up, I'm not gonna frame it. I can maybe give it to a friend. That's probably a good thing to do. But I started doing this and I took it to an extreme. Like I would spend, I don't know how long, maybe hours, doing stuff like this. And then I would just leave it there. And all these questions start coming to my mind, which is, did somebody keep it? Did somebody throw it? Was it X person who discovered it or Y person? And then I realized, dude, I need to disconnect. Like, I should not give a fuck about this because that is a part of the art. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I think Isam, the Taj said you still took pictures of them, which is true. We have like this compulsion to store it in some medium. Like I think about that a lot, right? Like throughout my 4 or 5 years that I spent in college, and I probably made like several pieces of work that were literally the most fucking important and brilliant things that I had done at that time. And
Hmm.
at the end of that 5 years, when I had to leave the hostel, I just had a bunch of like sheets or like journals or whatever. And I was like, what the fuck do I do with this? Okay. I could spend the next few weeks scanning all of this shit and keeping it in some folders and then reminiscing about it some point today. But honestly, like, there's, if I'm being honest with myself, I'd never look at them again. And I think that it's really hard to let go, and I think that we're kind of hardwired to be like you might need it someday, or like someday someone will find it valuable. I must keep it or collect it or whatever.
Yeah.
And there are arguments on both sides. Like I don't know, tomorrow maybe your bill would have like sold for and like you could have minted as NFT when you're like
Yeah.
if you're like a really famous person and someone's like I have a bill that Abhinav left at Third Wave and I'm selling it on eBay
Yeah.
or like I'm minting it for NFT. That would be pretty kick-ass, but you can't actually know that. And people who do know that or like who can see that kind have that kind of foresight, wow,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. I
But
think
it's
it
really hard. I
it is. It is.
yeah,
Yeah. It's just the fact that, dude, I could have also not taken a photo, but it's almost like that's my level of attachment, which is I at least want to be able to tell a story about it later, right? If
yeah.
nothing else. Right? And this account, for example, that I just showed, I'm not active on that account anymore, right? Account is inactive totally. However, it's still there. It is still ephemeral in the sense that I feel like with feeds, we're so used to seeing recent stuff and not old stuff, such that this might as well not exist. It might as well be deleted.
No, but it's still hard to actually delete it. Like I feel like in some sense it's like the fact the reassurance that you know that it's there or that you know that it happened because it's there and like if it's not there then at some level you're like what if people don't know that it happened is a scary thought.
Mm,
It's just like even I mean I can there are you can extend that to so many different things, right? It's like if you're doing any kind of work for a client, any kind of design work for example you're doing, you want to show many different iterations just to show that it happened, even if you reached at like the right answer maybe in the first go, but you just want to be like no, I want to show you that this
yeah,
happened because it's important to you to know that there was some kind of process involved here, whatever. Yeah,
true,
so
true. And yeah, I totally get that. It's I mean, there's still physical components of this somewhere, right? Like this, for example, I did it and I was like, yo, I can't throw this away. Um, so I just, because I literally asked them for a bag. I was like, yo, give me an empty bag. I just want to draw. And they were like, yeah, sure. And at the end of it, I just gave it to them. I was like, yo, do with this what you might. And of course, I know the founders. So it was like a nice personal gift kind of thing. And they were like, yo, like, one of the founders, Anirudh, he was like, yo, I've been thinking about getting a tattoo of this, right? This was influential to me in this way. And I was like, what is this art worth? Maybe it's just worth those stories. It's just worth those conversations. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I really do. The more and more I think about it, I feel like this, like, art really sits on there's so many different spectrums of like things that are super temporary,
Mm.
things that are super permanent. Like when you talk about tattoos being permanent, they're as permanent as you are, and which is also temporary in many ways. And
Yeah.
people will lose their minds about tattoos being permanent, so they have to, wow, the lights are back. Yeah, so tattoos being permanent, so it has to be perfect. It like it has to have meaning, blah blah blah. But I mean, does it really? And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just I just think it's so much of a mindset that
Mm.
like once, and it's all about, in many ways I feel like it's about the first time. Like once the first time you destroy a piece of something that you worked really hard on, you destroy it by choice. Oh, speaking of, I sent you a link some days back. I don't know if you checked it out. There's this artist
Mm.
who does ballpoint pen or pencil drawings, extremely realistic,
Yeah.
detailed drawings. And uh, it was done of some boxer or something like that. And then she got flagged for copyright. And she must have spent like a few days or weeks doing that. But she got flagged for copyright and she was asked to destroy this piece of art. But she never destroyed it. She had it, she didn't monetize it, she didn't sell it, didn't do anything with it, but she had it. And then she decided to make a video where she spray paints on top of this piece of art, basically destroying this piece of art.
Mm.
And she minted that video as NFTs.
Wow.
And it's so meta because it was just like something that was permanent. She destroyed it, making it go away, but it's also a video and now it's a collectible. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just I love that shit. Like I
Mm.
live for this kind of commentary on
It's yeah.
on crazy shit. Yeah.
It's rule breaking, no? It's rule breaking and it's exciting
Yeah.
because it's like, for example, you're taking the medium, you're saying this is what the medium is about, and then you're totally breaking it. So, for example, you're saying it's tattoos, most permanent thing gonna be with you. You're gonna see this when you're 80. Yet, I'm gonna get a shit post tattoo. Like that is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's just really, it's like, and even with tattoos, I don't know if this has been your experience, but with mine it was like after I got the first tattoo, I stopped. I literally just immediately like completely tapped out. I was like, anytime anyone asks me what this means, I'm just like, it does not mean anything. I got it because I like it. That's it,
Mm.
And I stopped worrying about what it means or what it signifies, or uh, I mean, of course, because I'm still a designer, I still care about how good it is, but that's just because of like my hard wiring. But I don't care about what it means anymore.
Mm.
I don't care about the permanence of it per se. I'm completely
Tell me
okay with
about
the
your
fact
last
that it's
tattoo.
permanent.
I want to hear about the last tattoo. Last tattoo, I was there technically, right? Was the last tattoo
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
FFX
that
one?
was the last.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was the last. Oh yeah, so yeah, even the story of that tattoo was, okay, this is my last tattoo. No, you can't see it there. You
Mm.
It's just an asterisk. So yeah, so I got it on a whim, right? So Abhinav, Rahul, Bhosle, and had gone for this festival in Jim Corbett National Park called FOX, and I mean we just went for like a few days, and then once we reached there, it so happened that there was this really cool tattoo artist who's like one of the big things that he was doing is kind of reviving traditional like
Naga.
Tibetan.
It was Naga or something, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's like the
Yeah.
style is like Tibetan, but yeah, it's like from Nagaland. And now only like the really, really old people at Nagaland have those kind of tattoos. And they know how to do it, but he's trying to revive it. And it's hand poking. For those of you who know what like hand poking is, literally dipping a needle in ink and poking it at the right layer of your skin such that the ink stays there, as
Hmm.
opposed to using like a gun. So uh, yeah, so I just was very fascinated by what he was trying to do. And I was just in one of those moods where I was just like, I want a tattoo. And yeah, so I just decided to go ahead and get a tattoo. And I got this asterisk, which is like a star, but with as.
Center.
Where? Can
Yeah.
you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
okay. Yeah. So, and I mean, I always thought that like the what I it doesn't mean anything. Again, I always found it to be a very fun symbol. I mean, like the star with six spokes. But
Hmm.
I also thought it would be interesting to someday at some point in my life, because asterisks are usually used as a footnote, like when you attach it to with a word,
Yeah.
and then you add a footnote in the bottom. So I was like, at some point in my life, I'll actually get a note on my foot, so it'll be like a footnote.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, so when I think of something that I want to get on my foot, I will get it attached to this asterisk.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was the last one. I've been really wanting to get some more. I have some ideas, but I don't
What's
know.
your number right
It's
now? How many do
yeah,
you have?
five. I have five.
Got it. I think I have five as well. Here's another thing people don't realize is after two or three, it's that number becomes whatever. It's like, yeah, you have tattoos and that's it. Because also you don't see
Yeah,
these on an everyday basis. Like I don't look at my ankle at all. But if I did, I know there's something there. Yeah.
yeah. I once saw this excellent meme which is that tattoos are like potato chips. You can't just have one, which is so true. So, I know very few people have one tattoo. Um, and I feel like the people who have single tattoos probably got them like as part of some kind of event or something like that. Like I don't know if they were fully committed to the idea of getting tattoos, but most people who've gotten one usually get like you have to get bored. It's almost like a thing now that like
Mhm.
it's just really exciting to get
It is about the
tattoos.
story. It is definitely about the story. Like when I was dating Ghana, like literally a few weeks after we met, she was like, "Yo, I want to get a tattoo." I was like, "Cool, I'll come with you. I'll also get a tattoo." And
Yeah.
looking at that now, it was weird because it's like, "Yo, we just met this person. Do you want to really attach this memory to this
Yeah.
person?" And whatever, it worked out, but it's the story
I
now.
have a similar story. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
have a similar story. I don't know if I'm ready to like publicly talk about the story, but yeah, I have a similar story.
yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, you're right. Like for me, all of my tattoos, like the story with all my tattoos is that I never got a tattoo in the same city, like more than once. As I try to get every tattoo in like a different artist and like a different
Mm,
city, and I try to attach it more with the place in my life, like at that point, because you always remember what you were doing when you got that tattoo, like what was going on in your life or whatever. So more than the tattoo itself, I try to, if I ever look at the tattoo, which you're right, like I don't look at it every day. But if I happen to look at it, I'm just like, oh, okay, that thing happened around that time, or like I was
mm.
doing this.
Man,
And
tattoos definitely are the OG NFTs because immutable. It takes gas fees to even get rid of it, right? Uh,
yeah,
this was, I think, my
yeah.
first one, dude. My first one, I just off the bat started with a joke tattoo. There was no going back from there. Um, but I got it, and for the first few weeks, I felt really weird. I felt very conscious that everybody was looking at it. Like I was wearing shorts, and I was like, "Yo, who's checking out my tattoo right now?" And then later, I was just like, "Bro, like." if I only can't remember that I have a tattoo, who else cares? But then it might also have to do
Yeah.
with the fact that I don't have visible tattoos. Like for some reason, I don't know why. After I got my first few, I was like, yo, I don't really want to go through that mental stress of thinking about other people and what they are perceiving when they are seeing this. So I'm just like, yo, semi visible to, you know, um, non visible. Yeah. I mean, I've gotten more tattoos since this video, but yeah,
Have you gotten any tattoos recently that I don't know about?
no, I don't think so. Nope. Yeah,
Yeah.
just the
Same.
five, just the five.
Yeah.
So tell me this. I want to ask you a related kind of question. You've seen Rome Cult? You heard about Rome Cult?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
the founder of Rome, Kona, they have this thing which is if you get a Rome tattoo, you get free lifetime access to Rome forever. And a lot of people have redeemed that.
Damn.
Yeah.
Dude, I would do it. Like, it's not even like it's not it's not a big deal for me. Like the my big deal is like, do I care about Rome? Like if I started to care about Rome, like I would be like, yeah, I would do it. I don't care about it that much.
Hmm.
Especially, what is the tattoo though? I want to know what they want you to
I'll
get.
show
They
you.
want you to get Rome card.
Yeah, let me show you. Um,
Yeah. If it just says like Rome or some shit, it's fine.
it's so
Is it that
basically
is it that their logo thing?
it is their logo. Let me quickly
Oh, I
pull that
hate
up.
that ugly.
So it's basically called the astrolabe, that logo. It's a particular this thing, but um, I think the founder got it
It looks
first.
like it looks like the steering wheel on a ship.
Mm. The founder was the first to get it, and then other
Oh,
people.
this is pretty cool.
I don't know if. Oh, that's the one, dude. That's the logo. So people started
Oh,
with just the logo, and then they were like, let's do more interpretations of it. So this is the fifth Rome cult tattoo, apparently. Um, there's a
oh,
few more.
nice. I mean, that's a very nicely done tattoo. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool, though. That I love this. I'll give you lifetime access. That's so
And
funny.
it's so funny because they've owned the idea of the Rome cult because they literally their entire team now lives on a ranch in bumfuck nowhere. I don't know where it is, okay, somewhere in the US. And they've got an entire ranch. They've got Rome hardcore believers, got people with tattoos. And I just love that vibe, dude. It's killer.
This sounds like Wild Wild Country. Amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's imagine it's wild wild country, but they are now a profitable software company. So they can now
that's
choose to take
even
that
better.
money and do whatever.
Yeah, love it.
um,
I think I should. I I've been I've been just wondering. I don't know. I feel like productivity is like one of those things that if you get too much into it, you inherently become unproductive by obsessing over how to be very productive.
mm,
So I've just been like, do I need to try Rome? But maybe I should try it.
mm.
And you really like it, right? You've been trying it recently.
It's okay. I mean, I don't like it to the point where I'll get a tattoo. But I want to ask you a related question. How long till somebody in the world gets a bro tattoo? What's your bet?
Uh, Depends on.
Soonest.
I need to
Soonest.
like. It's not. I'm not worried about how. I think it's very soon, but it's more that if someone already has a tattoo and is like as part like there are many people who already have tattoos as part of the community, it's not a big
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. It's not a big
It
deal.
is.
So I would say
Yeah.
3 months.
Mm.
Okay, no, I'm gonna factor in the fact that the pandemic is pretty bad now. So within the year.
Mm, interesting. I also feel within the year, but what I am more concerned about is what kind of perception that sets to people who don't know what's happening, who are like, yo, this is a. I always hate this thing, which is when PewDiePie does it, oh, it's audience building, but now people are like, oh, dude, bro is a cult. I'm like, bro, like, but
I think PewDiePie is also a cult.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's like when
Yeah.
startups do it, it's user acquisition. But when I do it, it's a cult. I'm like, bro. Yeah.
It's yeah. I think it's just like when you don't understand something, it's very easy to just be like difficult.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I just feel like if people are just like happy finding other people to talk about interesting things too, why the fuck not?
I mean,
Yeah.
the thing is we can totally run with it, right? We can it's there's a big story around this. It's like, yo, it's the first bro tattoo ever in the world, most likely. And yo, I mean, you could totally tie this to NFTs, right? You could create an NFT that only people who have this tattoo will own, and it's a non-transferable NFT. Like you could program that shit. So yeah.
Yeah. See, the cool thing with like bro as a word is that of course for people who know, like who are part of the gang, they know where it's from or like what it's about. But for a random person who can read Hindi, they're just like, okay, like bruh, like BRUH in Hindi, cool, like whatever. And and yeah, I think it's uh yeah, it's not very challenging to get. It's like if it was
Yeah.
something really, really stupid, I feel like that might be longer.
Mm,
I don't think there's a lot of barrier to entry, you know,
yeah.
with bro.
Yeah. So folks,
Mayank
that
is volunteering to get it.
yeah, yeah. Shout out to Zed for super chat, first super chat of today. 1111. Dude, very likely it's Natansh is like, yo, don't put ideas in my head, yo. Sumit wants an NFT and redemption for it. Sumit, considered. I've considered your input.
Yeah, I'll design a tattoo for whoever decides they want to get it. I'm happy to help them design it.
Cool. Awesome. So Sneha, we have last couple of minutes. Okay. We have a countdown on the screen as well. Closing thoughts on what's the scene these days, dude? How do you feel about your role as a designer?
Oh man, what a deep question.
That's why
I'm
I asked
actually
for the
like
last two
on tech.
minutes.
Yeah, so it's like I don't want to talk about it for more than 1 minute. Uh, yeah, yeah. I feel like I don't know. I just everything is kind of shitty right now. Like with the number of cases and stuff more recently, I just feel like we're like in a loop. Like I was doing this exact same thing last year in some ways, and I think we were all not just ready to do this twice, and I'm just thinking, what does it mean to be a designer
Mm,
in this at this time? And I'm trying not to think about it so much because it's like one of those things that you never get answers for.
true.
So I'm trying to channel my and the way I'm thinking about it more recently is that as like people think put you in a bucket when you're like a designer, they expect you to do XYZ things. But I think about it as like the kind of thinking that it allows me to do. And that can be, and most of the time in my case, it's outside of design. I do design when it's fun for me
Mm,
and like when I enjoy doing it and like I feel excited by it.
yeah.
But the other times I'm using my background as a designer to do something else, which is challenging and things I actually don't know how to do or I'm trying to figure out how to do. And then I don't feel so shitty about it
But you're
because
more
then I'm
independent
just
now.
like,
You're independent now. You've quit your
exactly.
job. So there's possibilities have
Yeah,
opened up.
there's
Yeah.
exactly. So which is why I'm like, I get to do this more, which is fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Folks, thank you all for joining. This was an interesting conversation. Kulcha culture will be a recurring feature on this channel. Follow Sneha, check her out on Twitter, Instagram, and we'll see you somewhere else on the internet some other day. Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye. Good night. Bye.